Hey, welcome into another edition of Man 101. I pray blessings upon your family. I hope you're all healthy and doing well. My family is, and I'm so grateful for that. You know, I practice on a day-to-day basis. Every day I wake up and I spend time in prayer thanking God for the great things in our life. Not focusing on the bad things, but just having intentional gratitude. And I am grateful for this time that I get to spend with my wife and that I'm spending with my kids and my grandkids. And one of the projects that I'm having an opportunity to do, you know, so many times we say, oh, we're so busy. If I had some time off or time away, I'd get this done or I'd get that done. Well, there used to be some trees here, some beautiful trees. We've taken those out, and I'm going to build my wife some gardens so she can garden with the grandkids, plant tomatoes and beans and all those things that she wants to do right in this space. This is going to take me a couple days. It's going to be a big project, but I'm excited to share it with you. So again, check it out. All right, so I spread this blue tarp down. I'm on the ground because my knees don't bend. But what I'm going to do is spike this thing down, because these landscaping rocks, for anybody who's ever done any landscaping, these things are a pain in the butt. So the theory here is I'm going to be able to rake some of these rocks, or the majority of these rocks, onto this blue tarp and kind of get them away from my work area. So that's the plan. All right, so now you can see I've got to the grass line here, dug this down a little bit. Just gonna prep this, and then move this rock wall down to here to kind of match this rock wall. And then the garden is gonna go back there eventually. And the key to this for me is just finding rocks that essentially look the part and fit together. So that's all I'm trying to do. And I've moved these around a couple times so far, but I think I've got a decent kind of plan here. Step back and look. I don't like the way that fits. All right, part of the frustration and the fun of doing this is kind of the artistic side, if you will. I have rearranged this rock wall. You see all these rocks? At least a dozen, well, not a dozen, 8 times anyhow. And I finally am getting a fit. And the other thing I did is, if you look at this glove here, you see the blood on the tip of that glove? Let's shake it off and see what it looks like. I smashed the crap out of my finger between 2 rocks. And oh, there you go. Can you see it? Come on, focus, baby. Anyhow, that's that finger right there. The good news is that I smashed it so hard that it popped. So all that blood came out, which relieves, obviously it relieves a ton of the pressure when you smash your finger. That's what makes it throb, is all that blood underneath the nail. So anyhow, at least it popped out, so the pressure's gone. So I've ripped out a bunch of rocks, and it probably took me 12 times before I found a pattern where this stacked correctly. And once I clean it up with fresh rocks and I build this garden right here, I think it'll look pretty sharp. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, you see I've got a piece of old timber here. I'm using that as a kind of test timber. This is where I want the base of this garden to go. I've got my tamper here, so I'll make sure that this is good and compacted, and then I'll put my timber down and make sure that it's level. I'll check it for level, and yeah, it's close to spot on right there. And then I let the irrigation here, I'll snip that. Eventually it'll go underneath, I'll snip that, and I'll redo the irrigation once I've built the garden, but I'll make sure that I have the irrigation right there ready to go. So anyhow, that's kind of the start. We're getting it planned out right now. All right, guys, as you can see, my garden is coming along. This is going to sit up pretty high here as we make this little rectangle planter box for my wife and my granddaughter. So ultimately, I got a speed square here, at least that's what I call it, and I'm making sure my corners are square. Then I'm finishing drilling that up, and then I'll put a 8-inch galvanized spike in there, and I'll move on to the next one. Wow, pretty easy, right? There they are, until that's not going anywhere. All right, so there's my irrigation line. I'm gonna connect it there. I'm gonna fish it through here, around, and then I'll connect it to that right there, so that this garden will have irrigation inside of it that I can tap into. Okay, you can see I've reconnected the irrigation. I even notched out one of these timbers, so now the irrigation will run through this garden, and I can connect it over on that end, and this garden will have water. A little piece of advice my dad used to tell me all the time as a kid: measure twice, cut once. It's great life advice. All right, you've heard it said, work smarter, not harder. And when it comes to irrigation, there's a couple things I like to do. One, put the cripper on first, okay? And then this is really hard to shove in there. Even when the pipe is, you know, it's pliable, it's warm out. One of the things I like to do is I always carry one of these in my irrigation bucket with me. Little Bic butane lighter. And so what I like to do is get this thing good and hot. So once you get it nice and warm, watch this. It just slides right in there, all the way to the end, just like that. Then you put this on here, grab your crimping device so that doesn't come apart, and give it a nice anaconda squeeze, as Jack Black would say from Nacho Libre. And there you go. Just that easy. All right. I just got these steppers, these concrete steppers, rearranged because I moved this thing over about 6 inches. So I rearranged those to land right here. As you can see, if you get up close, you can see these little spikes on the edge of each one. Let me see if I can get this. See these little spikes on the edge of each one to make sure, got 3 of them on each, to make sure they don't slide around when they're being walked on. All right, so that garden box is built. I'm gonna put one more right here that kind of mimics or matches it. It's only gonna be 1 square instead of 2 though. I think anytime you're building something like this, a garden, the first step, and the most important step, is to put the baseboard in, or where you're gonna start here on the ground level. Make sure that it's flush, that it's level. I'm gonna dig it down a couple of inches so it's in there nice and tight, because everything else is going to be built off of this first placement of this first baseboard. So that's kind of where I start, and I'll build from there. All right, here's one of the issues you run into that makes a project that you think is going to take a couple hours take a few more hours than you thought. Right where you want to put this baseboard, you find this tree stump. So I'm going to spend the next hour or so getting rid of this thing. That's going to be a pain in the butt. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Success. Placed. Now I'm ready to build. All right, just finishing up a little irrigation. See how we cut the irrigation? It came down here, so we cut that into the wood there, and Now I'm just laying these last little sprinklers here, so 2 will water this way and 1 will water this way, and it'll all get wet. So you have one of these little deals here when you're plugging these things in. So this just pokes a hole in that 1/2-inch tube, and then you jam this thing in there and never to be seen again. All right, so there you go. Now it's just filling this thing back up with dirt and cleaning up this area. Okay, so there it is. Project has been finished. Obviously need to put some more topsoil in these gardens, but the rocks are back in. Everything is done. Looking good. All right, so that does it, guys. About 24 hours of straight work over the course of 4 days. And these gardens are just about ready to be planted. The kids are gonna have a great time growing vegetables. Man 101, you're welcome.